Welcome to Gold Derby's Meet the Experts Film Cinematographers panel. I'm Daniel Montgomery here with James Friend from All Quiet on the Western Front, Rina Yang from Nanny, Bobby Bukowski from Till, and Luc Montpellier from Women Talking. Now, cinematography is, of course, a very artistic field, but it is also a very technical one. So I'm wondering, kind of getting into the nitty gritty, what's your favorite type of camera or piece of equipment that you've worked with? And why? Let's start with Luc.
I am a huge fan of large format cinematography. Just the depth of field and the extra manipulation that you can achieve based on that extra large sensor, and the idea of a high bit depth for these sensors, but also in combination, I'm a big fan of more vintage lenses on those, because I find some digital cameras or photography in general can get quite clinical and digital, which can serve you, but I just love the idea of finding the old glass. I'm a big fan of Panavision lenses. On Women Talking, we shot on these Ultra Vista rehoused lenses from the 50s that there are only like 8 sets in the world that they've created. So to me, it kind of took away the digitalness of the image while still giving you a lot of sharpness, that you could still feel pores and blades of grass. And so that kind of combination of the old and the new, I'm very much a fan of.
How about you, Rina?
I kind of go back and forth between digital and film. I love large format as well, and I always go to Panavision because I love the ability for us to be able to customize lenses and talk about each project as a unique, and then we can make the lenses for the project. That's just such a great way to approach a project. I do love shooting on film, but it has to be the right. I think everyone has to be on board because, I like differently when we're shooting on film, and the expectations of what people are used to these days on low light, and how quickly we can move is very different. So I think I love large format and film depending on the projects.
Bobby?
Yeah, I like Arriflex camera. I'm used to using Arriflex since we shot on negative, my earlier films. I think what Rina and Luc are saying, I agree with. I love large format. I like how it renders portraiture. And for me, if there's only one shot in a film, it should be a shot of a person's face, because it's really what tells the story in my book. And it's the glass that you put in front of the camera. It's, a camera is a box with a hole in it, and then it's really the glass that you put in front of it that gives you the texture and the quality that you're looking for. I too am a fan of degrading the image somewhat with using older lenses, until we use the Tribe 7 black wings that Bradford Young, a great black cinematographer, innovated with an engineer. And so, yeah, that's
great.
Yeah, James?
It's a very good question. I mean, I really am all about the right tool for the right job, and I always used to be obsessed with the technology and the cameras. And I think as I kind of developed in my career, that you're duty bound to understand the workflow and understand your box of tools, which is so important for one aspect of cinematography. But I grew up shooting film and then digital, and when I first used a large format camera, I completely fell in love with it. It impacts the way you frame and tell stories, and on All Quiet we adopted that principle. And we ended up shooting sort of primarily on the Alexa 65, but because of the logistics of certain environments and certain shots, we had to drop down to the LF Mini, the other Alexa system, which kind of cut seamlessly. It was absolutely perfect, and it's really fascinating when you can form all these images even if you drop down to a 35mm sensor, how all the sort of technology and everything like that just sort of melts away, and you just appreciate the image for what it is. And I too, I mean, I'm more passionate about glass than I am about the cameras, but I recently shot on, I would say cameras, but mainly sensors that I've ever worked with. But you know, it's like Bobby was saying, it's all about the glass you put in front of it, you know, and it was echoed by both Luc and Rina. You know, that is the sort of optics, physically and metaphorically, that you're the eye of the audience. But yeah, I mean, I love it all. I love it all, really.
And something interesting about you know, photographing film in this day and age is you know, sometimes you're shooting for the big screen, sometimes films are going to be streaming online, people will be watching them in their homes. You know, even a film that goes on the big screen will eventually be seen by viewers at home. Does that kind of affect your approach to making a film, just considering the kind of, you know, arena on which it'll be seen? Let's start with Rina.
I think, well, when I shot TV shows, you know, I think we frame differently, you know, the close-ups and mid shots. You know, I rarely go very, very tight if I'm shooting for big screen. But then if it's television, or we know that it's gonna end up on small screen, then, you know, we might go a little tighter. But, you know, I think when I'm doing a film, you know, I'll hope some dreams, or that the people would watch it on a big screen in theater with no screen competition, you know, no iPads, no phones, and you know, which is you know, it's one of the hardest competition that we can achieve. But yeah, I think yeah.
Bobby?
No, I feel like I'm resigned to the fact that people are watching films while they're doing 10 other things on. They'll be watching it on an iPhone or on an airplane, and I don't really design for anything but what the film calls for. I do agree with Rina that when I'm shooting television, there is a certain, you know, decree that you should shoot closer so that people could fill up the screen more. But at the end of the day, I think you can't be dictated from the size of your frame, dictating, you know, how you shoot a film. You have to work with the story and tell the best story with the best tools that you can.
Yeah, I can say that I don't think that way, or at least my brain doesn't sort of function that way. I don't ever deliver an image for one platform, because you know, even films that, some of my favorite pictures in the world that have been shot on 65mm film, or alternatively anamorphic, you know, they look great on a television, they look great on an iPad. And when the film should dictate the size of the shot to me, and the coverage. And you know, when you're lining a shot up and looking through a lens, you know instinctually what's right for the story, and that's how I do it. And I don't know if that's the right way or the wrong way, but yeah, I approach everything like it's going to be seen on an IMAX screen, or and eventually been on an iPad. So I would say no, I don't really give it that much thought, to be perfectly honest.
How about you, Luc?
Yeah, I would echo what everyone is saying here in a different way. I very much asked that question. Obviously, where is the film primarily going to be seen? Is it for theatrical distribution? Is it for streamers? I mean, I would say it affects me slightly. Like on Women Talking, that 2:76 aspect ratio on a phone, I have to admit, I did put it on my iPhone and saw how it render, but it didn't really drive me into making changes. We very much made every decision for the big screen. But I'll say this too, televisions today generally are so inexpensive, the large screens now, that it seems like you almost have a very, theatrical environment in your house. So when it comes to theater and home, if you're doing it in your living room, you can get 100-inch TVs now. So I would say that too. I would say it doesn't really impact me as well, but being aware of where it's primarily going to show, it is considered a bit based on frame size for me, a little bit. But I never go down to the iPads and the iPhones, because that's a completely different viewing experience, and you have to pick one, and it's a shame to have to frame something for an iPhone and then make those decisions for the big screen. It's just not. But I think big screen is such the historic kind of gold standard that's what I tend to think of as well.
Yeah, I'm wondering what you sort of interested all of you in the field of cinematography as an art form and as a medium for expression. How about you, Bobby?
Well, I was in medical school before I entered into the field of cinematography. I find there's a lot of people from disparate disciplines entering into cinematography. For me, it became about photography at first. I was working in New York City as a bicycle messenger, and I always carried a still camera, and I started shooting events and people, and I just loved capturing light, capturing odd events, street photography. So I just extrapolated into wanting to tell stories. I'm quite a literate person. My mother banged it into our head to read books, so I was fascinated with fictional stories, and it seemed like a good marriage between photography and storytelling, obviously, with cinematography.
Yeah, I mean, I once again was just completely fascinated with cinema and the moving image, but primarily storytelling. That was what really grabbed me, and I think I'm the most at home when I'm constructing an image through movement of a camera and through illumination. Not illumination. I don't want to say the word paint with light, because it sounds so it sounds so contrived. But yeah, those kind of small brush strokes that you can do that can affect an image in such a huge way. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't do anything else, to be perfectly honest. I adore my job. Yeah, for me, it's the ultimate art form, really, because the other reason is because it's so collaborative. And you could take one script and give it to one director and cinematographer and designer, and I think it would be a very expensive but very fascinating kind of social experiment to give the same script to different people and see how they interpret it in a different way, and because it's so personal as well. And yeah, I love it. I love the fact that it's a beautiful kind of harmony, symphony between sort of technology and artistry, but artistry first, and also interpreting other people's words on the page and capturing images and emotion and seeing it all come together it's really such a gratifying process for me. Yeah.
Luc?
Yes, I was kind of, as a young person, someone that would escape to the movies and became kind of my best friend in a lot of ways. And so it started as I was young, but I was also someone that loved the inner workings of things. So ended up going to film school when I was, at that age. And it's funny, like a lot of people entering film school, they all think they want to maybe direct. And, would always, like Bobby, have a camera with me when I was there. discovered cinematography there, where I started shooting other people's films. And as what James is saying, that collaboration aspect started to come in, and the kind of hidden magic behind the camera was a completely fascinating thing to me, and how you could manipulate that technology to tell a story. So it all just kind of happened there. And it was in the 90s. There was a lot of music videos being shot there. So it was a very experimental time to enter this career. So I got to play a lot and meet directors that were very experimental, and a lot of art films. And so, this notion that film could be anything, it doesn't have to be one specific thing, but as my colleagues are saying, it's about the story and how to best, combined elements of things, and again, very collaborative. To me, that's my favorite part, where you create a safe environment where everyone has ideas, and including my crew, and there's nothing like it. It's quite a high.
I'm the same as Luc, that I went to film school not knowing that there's such a thing called either cinematographer. Every single one of us, most probably 98% of us in that year, thought that we wanted to be a director. I just wanted to make films. That I loved watching movies, and I used to draw comics and make up my own little comic books. I loved taking pictures and making home movies. So it was kind of natural transition that, when I thought about what I wanted to do when I grew up, so should I do art? But the art modern art just felt like such an abstract concept, or, the profession. And how would I tell a story with this piece of sculpture? So I ended up going to film school, and I think only 1.5 years into 2-year course, I discovered there's such a thing called cinematography. And, I really enjoyed that, although there was no female cinematographers, and, the boys were kind of surrounding the camera in the film school, and they wouldn't let me touch it. But I just started working as a camera assistant on set, and then, I saw a female DP working, and, it really fascinated me that I could do that. And it kind of, it clicked everything that I like taking pictures. I like, telling stories. And so I think that was the beginning. And really, I sort of fell into, cinematography that I didn't know that I would like it. But it's, like James said, I really think that it's the best job in the world. The collaboration with, other such talented people, and, I think we're just so lucky to be able to do this as a job.
Well, I want to congratulate all of you on your work. It's so varied and unique, and it's been a pleasure talking with all of you about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all.